Thank you for tuning in to the first public involvement meeting for the design of the North Teutonia Avenue reconstruction project in the City of Milwaukee. This project extends from West Mill Road to West Good Hope Road. My name is Ellie Catania, and I am the public involvement lead for this local program project. The project team will go over the following during this meeting. We'll start with introducing the project team and then go into an overview and background of the project, followed by the complete street policies. Then we'll discuss the project goals, the existing roadway configuration and proposed alternative, and other potential improvements as part of this project. Lastly, we'll finish up by discussing the project schedule and giving an overview of the public involvement planned for this project. Let's begin by introducing our project team. Again, my name is Ellie Catania, and I'm the public involvement lead for the project. Brian Wilson with EMCS is the project manager, and Nick Becker, also with EMCS, is the lead project engineer. Additional project staff with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation and the City of Milwaukee include Greg Hafman, the local program project manager, Samuel Medin, the project manager, Silvana Pobrick, the assistant project manager and design lead, and Sarah McClanahan, Marketing and Communications Officer. Now I will turn this over to Brian Wilson for the next portion of our presentation.
Thank you for watching this presentation. As a quick overview, this project has been proposed by the City of Milwaukee and Wisconsin Department of Transportation due to the deteriorating pavement on both the Teutonia Avenue mainline roadway as well as the service drive on the west side of the street between Green Tree and Good Hope. The aim of the project is to fully reconstruct the mainline roadway, including the pavement, curb and gutter, and driveway aprons. The sidewalk will also be replaced, and pedestrian ramps will be reconstructed to Americans with Disabilities Act standards. Some modifications to intersections, median openings, and driveways are planned for traffic and pedestrian safety, and also to configure the driveways to match the property usage. Traffic signals and street lighting may have modifications as needed, and the project will convert the street from 4 travel lanes to 2 travel lanes. We've looked at a few alternatives for bike lanes, and we'll touch on that more in a few slides. In addition, the service drive will have the pavement repaired and resurfaced as well. As this map shows, we have a variety of stakeholders in the corridor. We have businesses, multifamily residential properties, single-family homes, industrial properties, and the Milwaukee Police and Fire Academy. So as we develop the design, we have a variety of stakeholders to consider within the corridor, as well as people traveling and commuting from beyond the corridor. To tailor the design to the needs of the stakeholders, we need as much input as possible on pedestrian safety needs, freight and delivery and loading and unloading needs, as well as parking. Here are some of the roadway criteria for Teutonia Avenue. The functional class of the street is minor arterial, which is the second tier of roadways. That means that Teutonia connects higher level streets such as Good Hope and Silver Spring to lower level streets such as Green Tree Road and various local streets. So this designation reflects the purpose of the street and corresponds to the design standards to be used. In addition, Teutonia is designated as a City of Milwaukee oversized, overweight truck route where large loads are sometimes permitted. And the existing posted speed of the street is 40 miles an hour. And we will take these into consideration with the design. As I mentioned, the project is being proposed due to the pavement condition on the street. The original concrete pavement for both the mainline roadway and the service drive was built in 1961. The mainline roadway also had an asphalt overlay placed in 2010. And the original pavement and the overlay are deteriorating and are reaching the end of their useful service life. Getting into traffic information, we obtained traffic counts and did a speed study in January 2026. The current traffic volumes on Teutonia Avenue are around 11,000 to 14,000 vehicles per day. Growth is anticipated to be fairly flat, so the forecasted traffic is around 12,000 to 15,000 vehicles per day in the year 2049. We also collected speed data at 2 locations and found that speeds were high. The posted speed is 40 miles an hour, and the 85th percentile speed was 54 to 57 miles an hour, which means that 85% of the people are traveling at or below 54 to 57 miles an hour. In other words, 15% are going more than 54 to 57 miles an hour. Typically, we want the 85th percentile speed to be fairly close to that posted speed of 40 miles an hour. The data also shows well over half of the people are driving over 45 miles an hour, and 10 to 22% of drivers are going more than 55 miles an hour. And that shows some pretty substantial speeding in the corridor. We also analyzed the corridor to see if it should still be a 4-lane roadway or if 2 lanes, 1 lane each direction, would be appropriate. Since we are looking to fully rebuild the roadway, we looked to see if it makes sense to keep or change the number of lanes, and we found that the roadway and intersections would operate acceptably under a 2-lane divided cross-section, so 1 lane in each direction. So even though the 4-lane cross-section would operate well, it would be considered overbuilt. Therefore, we feel a 2-lane street would be appropriate and would help to reduce speeding. We know there are larger vehicles such as transit and freight and loading and unloading needs in the corridor, so we'll need input to help make the design compatible with the needs in the corridor. We've also analyzed the crash data for the corridor, looking at 5 recent years of crash data. There were 60 crashes reported along Teutonia Avenue within the project limits over that time period, and that excludes the signalized intersection crashes, which would add another 118 crashes. We determined that the crash rate, or the number of crashes factoring in the amount of traffic, is about average for similar streets statewide. We also determined that the fatal and serious injury crash rate, which we call the KAB crash rate, is 68% higher than statewide average for similar roadways. And that included a fatal crash near the Vera Avenue intersection which killed 1 pedestrian and injured another. So the analysis shows that there are some serious safety aspects to address on this street. Based on that, we've identified some improvements which would help to address safety, such as roadway conversion to 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction, and the traffic analysis supports that, and it would benefit safety as well. Other improvements include pedestrian improvements, which we'll touch on later in the presentation. As an example of safety improvements from converting from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, on South 60th Street, the crashes were reduced by over 20% compared to when it was 4 lanes. The previous 2 slides about speed and safety are really important. The human body can only withstand so much force in a crash, and the faster that motor vehicles are traveling, the greater chance that a crash will result in a serious injury or someone dying. With someone driving at 20 miles an hour, there's a 13% likelihood of a fatality or serious injury to a pedestrian. Driving at 30 miles an hour, that increases to 40%. And driving at 40 miles an hour, there's a 73% likelihood of a fatality or injury to a pedestrian. With the speeds that we're seeing on Teutonia Avenue, which are even higher, that's a significant concern. So one of the most effective strategies to improve safety is to reduce speeding. And one of the ways to do that is through engineering with the redesign of the street, along with education and enforcement. Touching on applicable policies, transportation projects such as these need to adhere to various city, state, and federal policies, and Complete Streets is one of them. Complete Streets policies can be summarized as, we need to provide accommodations for all users and abilities, and some examples are listed here. There are Complete Streets policies at the city, state, and federal level that apply, and the city continues to make strides toward the Vision Zero goal of 0 deaths or serious injuries. So we've been developing alternatives and improvements with Complete Streets in mind. We need your input at this time to help us decide what is appropriate for this corridor. It's important to keep in mind that what works or doesn't work on one project may or may not work on another project. There can be different right-of-way widths, traffic volumes, bicycle and pedestrian needs, and other characteristics. There's no magic formula to decide which alternative to go with, so we'll be evaluating various alternatives and we'll need stakeholder input to help make a decision. All of the information on the previous few slides leads to our project goals. We've identified those on this slide, and they revolve around improving pavement and infrastructure, improving safety and mobility for all users, and enhancing stormwater management. And to wrap it into one overall goal, it's to provide a functional, livable street meeting the characteristics of the corridor and the community. Next, Nick will cover the existing roadway configuration as well as design alternatives.
I'd like to touch base briefly on the current roadway section for this roughly 1-mile stretch of Teutonia Avenue. Currently, Teutonia is a 4-lane divided roadway with a center median, 2 travel lanes in each direction, an on-street bike lane and parking lane. Most areas have sidewalk with a grass terrace between the curb and the sidewalk. Public street right-of-way is generally about 1 foot from the outer edge of sidewalk. There is both street lighting and street trees in the median and terrace areas of this corridor. We considered reconstructing the roadway as 4 lanes, but this would not meet the project goals, and it would be considered overbuilt, and the second lane in each direction would be at 100% city cost. Reconstructing as 4 lanes would only meet the goal to address deteriorating pavement and roadway infrastructure. Other goals not met would be the improvement of transportation safety and mobility, crash severity, implementation of traffic calming measures to reduce excessive speeding, and stormwater management. Other options that we looked at are roadway reconfiguration alternatives, which are very similar to each other. The main difference in the alternatives is how the bicycle accommodations are provided. The roadway would be rebuilt with 1 travel lane in each direction. 1 lane in each direction provides adequate capacity and improves the safety for all users of the roadway. Center median would be slightly modified and would still accommodate street trees and street lighting. Sidewalk would be replaced, including ADA pedestrian ramps. On-street parking would be provided at spot locations. Street trees in the terrace area will generally remain. Drainage structures will be replaced or repaired. With Teutonia being signed as a bike route, each of the alternatives will look to improve bicycle accommodations in conjunction with the roadway. We anticipate some driveway and access modifications. On the Teutonia Avenue website, there is a plot of the entire corridor that shows potential driveway and median removals and modifications. With these modifications and lane reduction, it is critical that we get input on freight turns and loading needs from stakeholders. Staging considerations with each alternative are being considered and may result in a detour, one-way traffic, or two-way traffic during construction. The next few slides, we are looking at alternatives to provide improved bicycle accommodations. Sample plots of each of the alternatives are on the North Teutonia Avenue website. These sample plots show a sample stretch near West Green Tree Avenue, and once the preferred alternative is selected, it will be developed for the whole project corridor and displayed at the next public meeting. Shown in Alternative 1 is a proposed roadway reconfiguration with one-way protected bike lanes. The bike lane will be raised between the sidewalk and the curb and gutter. This alternative provides a more physical barrier between traffic and bicyclists. The sidewalk would also be widened to 6 feet on both sides of North Teutonia Avenue. An example of this alternative is shown in the typical section and in the right-hand corner of this slide. The second roadway reconfiguration alternative is the one-way protected bike lanes at street level. This alternative is similar to Alternative 1, where the bike lane will be separated, but at street level instead of raised. The sidewalk will be widened to 6 feet on each side of North Teutonia Avenue with this alternative. An example of this is shown in the typical section and in the right-hand corner on this slide. Alternative 3 is a two-way protected bike lane on street. The two-way bike lane would be located on the west side of the road and would be separated from the driving lane and parking lane by a concrete median. This alternative would have significant impacts to median street trees and street lighting due to the need to shift the median. The two-way bike lane alternative would have an additional cost for storm sewer compared to other alternatives. One consideration with this alternative is drivers must watch bicyclists from both directions when turning to and from North Teutonia Avenue. The sidewalk would be widened to 6 feet on both sides of North Teutonia Avenue. There is an option with this alternative to swap the two-way bike lane for a shared use path. This would be similar to the Oak Leaf Trail, where both bicyclists and pedestrians share a wider space. This space would be 12 feet and replace the sidewalk on the west side of the road. An example of this alternative is shown in the typical section and in the right-hand corner of the slide. Alternative 4 is the buffered bike lane alternative. This alternative provides on-street space between both the parking lane and the driving lane for people biking. This alternative has minimal safety improvement for people biking. The sidewalk will be widened to 6 feet on both sides of North Teutonia Avenue. An example of this alternative is shown in the typical section and in the right-hand corner of the slide. Sample plots of each of the alternatives are on the North Teutonia Avenue website. These sample plots show a sample stretch near West Green Tree Avenue, and once the preferred alternative is selected, it will be developed for the whole project and displayed at the next public meeting. The adjacent service drive to North Teutonia Avenue is planning on being resurfaced with construction. There will also be spot concrete pavement repairs along with spot sidewalk replacements. Some adjustments and repair to storm sewer structures may occur as well with this work. Reconfiguration of the intersection with the service drive are planned. Pedestrian ramps will be updated to current ADA standards. There are some other improvements that we'll also be looking at with the reconstruction of North Teutonia Avenue. There's some possibility for raised crossings and bike crossings on the side streets. These can help safety for people walking and biking. Whether we include these may depend on the preferred alternative. We'll look at crossing improvements at the Police and Fire Academy, such as realigning the crosswalk at its current location or possibly moving the location. We'll also look to include curb extensions and high visibility crosswalk markings. We'll also look at some of these types of pedestrian safety improvements at other locations as well. We'll also be looking at whether we can add green infrastructure, such as bioswales, to help infiltrate water. Next, Brian will touch on project schedule and timeline.
This slide shows where we are in the design process. We've gathered and analyzed traffic and crash data, survey and engineering data, and we've developed alternatives for a sample stretch of the roadway, as Nick showed. After this public meeting, we'll take the input we receive and select a preferred alternative, and we'll show that at another public meeting later this year. We'll then develop an environmental document which documents the reasons for the project, the alternatives considered, the alternatives selected, the impacts, and the public input we received. After that is when we get into detailed engineering and plan development, and then utilities will be adjusted as needed prior to the full reconstruction of the street. Finally, after that comes the reconstruction. The schedule on this slide shows how the design process plays out over the next few years. Again, early stakeholder input is very important to help us decide which alternative to move forward with for the rest of the design process. Next, I'll cover a few general topics. For real estate, the project may need to acquire small areas of property or temporary easements. This would be at spot locations such as blending in lawns or reconfiguring driveways or intersections. We'll know more by the next meeting as we select and develop a preferred alternative. Driveway permits will be needed with the project, and the city will send those out during preliminary design. Property owners will also be notified of any encroachments during preliminary design. These are objects such as fences or landscaping or similar features that are in the city's right-of-way. Construction for the project is tentatively scheduled to occur in 2030, and it's anticipated to take 1 year. However, we need to keep in mind that most utility adjustments in the street will take place the year prior. There will be no assessments to property owners for project costs, and the project is funded through the Federal Surface Transportation Program, which is administered by Wisconsin DOT. That means generally 80% federal funds and 20% city funds will be used for the mainline reconstruction and will need to follow city, state, and federal policies. The resurfacing of the service drive will be paid for 100% by the city. Last but not least, the cost of the project is estimated to be $10 to $15 million. This is a significant investment into the corridor, so we really need your input and engagement.
We will be holding 3 public involvement meetings throughout the project. This first meeting is providing crash and traffic analysis, presenting feasible roadway alternatives, and gathering public input. The second meeting will present the preferred design alternative and gather more input to complete the environmental documentation and preliminary plans. Input on specific use of the corridor is super important at this first meeting and our second meeting before these environmental documents and preliminary plans are completed. So this includes input on pedestrian safety needs, trucking and freight operations, including loading and unloading, and general uses of the street. The third, which is the last meeting, will present pre-final plans, discuss construction staging, and gather input on potential concerns related to construction. We will be utilizing the North Teutonia Avenue project website to share project information and materials. This website is accessible by scanning the QR code with your smart device or by visiting the link above. Updates and announcements will be posted to this website to keep you updated throughout the design process. We encourage you to go to the website and subscribe to our email distribution list and to help spread the word about the project and encourage others to be engaged. If you have any comments or questions, please see the contact information on your screen for the public involvement lead. We look forward to your input and engagement, and thank you for watching the public involvement meeting. Thank you for your engagement throughout the North Teutonia Avenue project.